are back. I picked that song for a particular reason. When you go out, that's all you want to do, ladies and gentlemen. You want to go out to have a good time. It really doesn't matter who's fitting the bill. And with me sharing that point of view is Dr. Robert L. Nolden, who is a relationship advisor, and he is also the author of a very awesome book entitled He Can't Love You. I advise ladies and guys to go pick up this book immediately. We're going to be getting into the book a little later on into the segment. We are discussing dueling over going Dutch. All my ladies out there, could you pay the bill? Could you split a cab fare? Would he still be appealing if the night out was always on you?
I bet he wouldn't. I bet he wouldn't.
Now you heard that, right? He's thrown down the gauntlet. That's a personal challenge, ladies. So if you're ready to sound off on Mr. Dr. Nolden, 504-260-WBOK. That's right, under the bus.
Under the bus.
504-260-9265. And this is A Woman's Perspective with your hostess with the mostest, Jocelyn Callow.
Well, you know, like I was saying before we went to break, I got to a point where I stopped treating myself. And I went home last week, and a woman in my life was standing up there, and she handed me a letter and some money, and she was like, here, go treat yourself. And that made me feel like, well, hey, look, you must be paying attention to the fact that I'm not treating myself enough, but I must be doing enough for you to want to treat me. So that sent me, like, up here. So I think, like, people, you know, I think it's a blessing when you find somebody who's willing to give you something special. It just is.
Yeah, fellas, don't feel like it's always charity. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the way you make your lady feel. She probably wants you to feel just as good as you make her feel when you're around each other. So if you run into a financial situation and hard times are upon you, don't think that we as women are always trying to put emotion into everything. And it's not always a bad issue either, because if a fella is in my life and he asked me to go out, and he was honest with me about how much he had to spend on the night, I honestly would not mind fitting the bill. Why? Because if he's good for me, which means he puts a smile on my face, I feel safe with him, I feel comfortable with him, then why not? And I don't want him thinking at the end of the day that I'm going to go and tell my girlfriends that he's just a dope or a mooch or a hard leg. You know, I mean, when you're happy, you're just happy. It really shouldn't have all of these noses in your personal happiness.
But I mean, you know, again, though, we put so much value on what somebody does financially. Think about it right now, the relationship matchup. Mm-hmm. When you think about the executive woman, you're not really picturing her with the construction worker guy.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not looking at her with the general laborer. Right. You know, you're looking at her with the other CEO, or you're looking at her with the other corporate guy, mm-hmm. or the doctor, or the lawyer, or the professional, if you will.
True.
But not the blue collar worker. And him working, whether it's blue collar or fast food or wherever you want to place him, as long as he's bringing something to the table, he's doing a part. You know. Mm-hmm. The fact that we let society dictate what we should have in our lives is a little sad. I think you should really be mature enough to get what makes you happy and hold on to it.
Absolutely. I mean, they've gotten so dictative to the point they can tell you the look of love. Mm. I mean, no one can dictate to you what love looks like. That's ridiculous.
You know what? The problem is most people don't know what love looks like anyway. Love is blind, but it's so blind that most people have never seen it, and even when they do see it, it's generally with his back turned, walking away from them. You know, wow. Most people don't even realize what real love is until they no longer have it, and then it's like, oh, I want it back, but it doesn't want to come back because it remember how it's been treated.
That is an absolutely strong point. I mean, too little too late can hurt us all. Mm. You're absolutely right about that. Well, if you are just joining us, in the studio I have with me Dr. Robert L. Nolden, relationship advisor, and we are speaking about dueling over going Dutch. We're really going into deeper and deeper depths of this, really, because it's not just the the topic itself. It runs so much deeper than that.
That was the great thing about the book. So many people coming out of breakups do an analysis on the people that they broke up with, never on themselves or how they even got in these relationships with those people.
Absolutely.
So when you're reading a book and you start looking at different circumstances and how people ended up in the predicaments they were in,
Yes.
it made you say, well, what did I overlook? What did I forget to include in my adjustments and my assignments of these people, you know? And when you start to really break it down and deliberate, you see that it's about self as well. Because sometimes you're drawn to people, but then you draw certain people onto you as well.
Right.
So you have to figure out what is the common denominator in you that brings these same people back and forth in your life.
Over and over again, like a repeated pattern. You asked such an interesting question in the introduction. You said if we could all see an individual for who they really were, meaning you could actually see the baggage, would you still be accepting of them? You know, in chapter 1, why does he cheat? Now, what I took from this chapter is the peer pressure that some males, I'm not saying all males, so please, you know, I'm not. I'm only speaking of a certain percentage. Some males initially experience some type of peer pressure from their own parents.
But see, and the thing is, I don't even look at it as peer pressure as much as encouragement. Like, I remember being small and listening to older men. Oh man, when you grow up, you're gonna have all these women. And when you weren't talking to a large group of women, were you scared of girls, man? All these girls out here, and it's astonishing how many women are like, girl, my baby gonna have all the girls when he get older.
Yeah, what is that about? But at the same time, you're calling them a little man. You want him to be a gentleman, and then at the same time...
see, here is where the trick comes in. You want them to be a man, but you want them to be society's definition of a man. Let me say it like this. Right now, in my past relationships, I was really closed off with how I felt. One way or the other. I'm an affectionate person. I'm romantic by nature. But as far as me explaining to you how I feel, that just wasn't something that I was comfortable doing. Now, later on in life, I'm much more comfortable in sitting down, telling somebody, hey, I don't like when you do this. Or, hey, I'm feeling like this and I just need you to pay attention to it. But to today's woman, I'm in my feelings. And that's not what men do. That's not what men did, because some man who was screwed up a long time ago got with a bunch of weak men and said, man, y'all weak if y'all tell a woman this or if y'all cry or whatever. But let's be real, as human beings, we all hurt.
Yeah, because in my opinion, a guy who doesn't cry or doesn't show any emotion, that's really scary. That's really creepy to me. I mean, that's like borderline psycho.
Okay, but how many men do you know that are encouraged to show their feelings?
Not very many.
Exactly. Most men aren't even taught how to express themselves. It just happens.
True.
And it usually happens at the most inopportune times. Like